like, this is just something, one of those creative ideas. I'm like, man, like, I love the Beach Boys. I'm like, how can I? And I started looking at it. I'm taking the camera to go over the top of it. I'm like, hey, this looks like a wave.
Yeah.
Do you think I could throw some little surfer guy on this thing? And just it started it. I was, I was not a social media guy for probably 6-7 years. I mean, I said forget it. I kind of just had enough with social changed a lot. I thought, in the direction that people were going on it, and became a lot more heated. And it wasn't just about connecting with your buddies that you hadn't seen in 20 years. It was a lot of other stuff. So I said, you know what, forget it. Like I'm off. And I got a lot of clarity back. But then with coming back to Stanton away from Mohawk, I wasn't in leadership anymore, and I was back in the field. I said, man, this is something that can actually help me with my customers, help me get into a different area, the design community, whatever it is. And so I was like, let's start doing it. But I was like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore, So I was like, honey, how do I talk to my wife? Like, what do I do? What's a story? How do you post these things? What are these little round circles that go over people's stuff? And so I started messing around with it, and then I started learning about reels, and that was I think that was my first one I shot on a video, and I'm like, that was kind of fun. Now I'm hooked. Like, it started working.
So you're there every day.
All day. I always feel like with social, it's like keep the lights on, and so a story keeps the lights on. Obviously, you post, and it just gives you content that you're constantly forward facing to your audience, So
tell us, how did you get into the industry? You said you were at Mohawk or whatever, but I mean, it's like you're a young guy. So how did you end up?
Yeah, 2002. So it's been 19 years.
Because you look like you're like 27, so it's like you started when you were 7.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm 40, but I'll take that any day. I want to say young. 40 is the new 20, right? No, so when I finished school at Heo College. It was for IT work, and I was doing some networking for a small construction company. They needed their network set up, and so I was doing all that work for them. And then it slowed down, and they're like, hey, you can start going out with some of the equipment and helping out, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, I could certainly start doing that. And so I did, and this is not the track I wanted to go. I mean, I didn't go to school for this. And so my father had always had a connection with S&G Carpet, which is a large Northern California chain.
Big guy.
And we knew one of the original owners, Gary Maselli. And so he goes, hey, Gary always told me, to my dad, Gary. He said, hey, Gary, if you, your kids or whatever ever need a job, send them in. I'm like, Pop, I went from like 40, 50, 60 hours a week down to like 20. I'm like, this is, I can't make this work. I need something else. And he goes, go see Gary. So I went and met him, and bam. I mean, I was hired like on the spot, I started working as a sales guy. And you would meet all the sales reps that come in. I'm like, these guys are like, man, they're bouncy and they're fun, and they're bringing you snacks and treats, and it's like, seems like it's a fun job. And I learned, I think, at that moment, I'm not a four walls kind of person. I think I could force myself into doing it, but I need that differentiation. I need that that variety. And bouncing in multiple different stores seemed like it was something that would work. And so I was managing a couple of their stores on an assistant manager level, and I met one of the guys from Shaw, Ron Jost. Hadn't been around for a while. He retired a little while ago, but I think he still does a golf tournament for the Floor Covering Association or something. Ron Jost, great, funny guy, awesome guy, and he tried to get me a job on the East Bay for Shaw as a sales rep, and it just didn't work out. And so eventually he said, hey, my counterpart Gary Wheels got a job down in San Jose. You should talk with Gary. And so I interviewed with Shaw for that one, and I ended up getting it. It was in San Jose, where I lived in San Jose, and so 2005 I started in the outside sales world with Shaw, and I was a salesperson for, about a year and change there. And then they had some changes where they started to silo the business. And so they said, well, we think we have enough channels going on. We need to separate multifamily and builder away from retail. So they did that. And so in that shakeup, I went over to the multifamily builder side of the business until about 2011. And then I got introduced to Mohawk, and I was their commercial specialist for a couple years on the West Coast, and then salesperson. And then I actually connected with Stanton in 2014. And it was great. I was with them until my friend Randy Kochevsky from Mohawk called and said, hey, would you want to manage the Bay Area for Mohawk? And I'm like, man, younger kind of guy, still thinking this is a chance to get into leadership, and I'll take the shot. And I did, and it was a great experience. I mean, they're great people over there, and great opportunity. And it rolled over in a little bit of Karastan, and then COVID hit. And unfortunately, in July, I lost my job for the first time. It was non-voluntary, first time ever. I mean, I've always kind of taken the next step.
Casualty of COVID, yeah.
Casualty of COVID, man. And so a friend of mine, him, I think, Eston Owen, he used to work for me at Mohawk, and he was also doing another deal over there on like a cushion specialist thing or whatever he was doing. And he was like, man, I need out. Like, I don't know if this is working, blah, blah. And I said, I'm going to introduce you to Rich Crawford. He was a friend of mine and my boss now at Stanton. I said, you got to talk to Rich. And this was 2017. And they were starting this new West Coast, Bay Area focused specialty brand thing, which is like upper end handmade wool products and stuff. And Eston took the job. And he built his territory up.
He's like the perfect fit. And that the same thing for you. I mean, it's like you guys are like, you were selling like just regular flooring stuff, and to get into this upper end handmade stuff just seems like it's
this is
what you should have been doing from the beginning.
No, it's totally amazing, you know. And so him and I are talking, and I talked to him on a Monday, and then Rich texted me on Tuesday. He goes, "You never guess who's resigning." I'm like, "Who's resigning? What are we talking about?" You know. And
they just set up some of our displays here, and I was like, "He's leaving? What the hell?"
No, it's crazy. And so he said Eston. I'm like, no, it can't be Eston. I just talked to him like literally yesterday. He would have told me. He goes, no, he just happened this morning. And so, you know, he just really had a strong sense, you know, that he felt like God's pulling me to Florida.
East Coast, yeah.
And I'm like, well, I need a job, and I've been praying to God for a job, so I think this is the way it's going to work out, man.
Prayers are answered.
Prayers answered right there, bam, bam. And so I interviewed back with Stanton, like, man, just don't leave us again this time, because I left him the first time, you know, for the Mohawk piece, and they're like, just don't leave us. I said, I'm not going anywhere, man. And it's been amazing. This brand, I mean, just to sell handmade and the way we roll products out, you know, a couple products every month or so, it just gives you something constantly to be in front of your customers about. It's tip of spear, and you could tell the truth. It's gorgeous. It's a beautiful product. I mean, it's fantastic. So it's been a great move. But yeah, so 19 years, seen a lot of things, done a lot of things, but it's been awesome. It's been a great ride. I love the mix in the flooring business between blue collar, white collar, and it's just a great mix. And then you know, multiple cultures touch floor covering. So I mean, it's not just your, you know, a typical you know, Caucasian family or whatever, blah blah, or owner of this and so. I mean, there's just I get multiple cultures, get multiple stories, and I love talking to people about how they got involved. Why did you start in the flooring business? Like, what's your story, right? And you get all that feedback, and it's just fun. I love people, and so it just works. Sales and people. I mean, it just
and
easy.
The products that you're dealing with today are like, you know, it's not tough to cook. It's artwork on the floor.
It is.
It's got a certain touch and texture and look, and it's like it's the cherry on top of the sundae for the room, right?
Yeah, most definitely. You know, and we think that it's a conversation piece. You know, I mean, you see beige cut pile carpet, and nobody's really asking, where'd you get that carpet from? But you see something that we do. You know, some of our stripes and our flat weaves and other things that we're doing, and those are conversation pieces. Yeah, it's a rug. Yeah, it's a runner. It's a staircase, but those are striking staircases. They are. I mean, they're, you know, they should be in a magazine.
We got a huge compliment from somebody who came in here day before yesterday.
Yeah.
A local designer gal, and she came in and looked around, and she hadn't been in here in a while, and she was like, "You guys have an amazing assortment of wool rugs."
Yeah.
And I guess she'd been in other stores, and I have no idea if the other guys have this much stuff in here, but we've kind of changed it around yet again.
Yeah.
Put the best stuff in the window. And moved, you know, some of the standard stuff to the back. So that people have a chance to see the differences, and that's really, the product sells itself. The minute you compare it, and once the customer understands the difference between this and how you could use it, and don't be afraid of wool, and it's the workhorse of the industry. And,
absolutely. I
mean, we just literally switched out the Type 6/6 nylon as a walk-off mat and put one of your products
I saw it down there. The first thing we walk into, you get the flooring disease when you're in this business long enough, which is you walk into a room, any room, your head just goes straight down. Oh, I know what that is, you know, whatever. Hey, they got to replace that, because you're thinking, you know. And so we walk in and boom, we see the Asana around the foot. It looks gorgeous. It's awesome. And again, what Stanton, I think, really did a good job when they purchased Antrim. I think it was 2013, 2012. When Stanton purchased Antrim, the goal was to take handmade products that were, you know, relatively expensive products and bring them to the masses in a way that handmade had never been done before. And that was really, I think, the success of what we've been able to do. Is you take a product that's handmade and you're thinking, boy, this consumer's got to be, ultra luxury consumer. But no, I mean, your average consumer can actually put a piece of handmade product, one of a kind handmade products in their house. Relative consistency, right? You still get some of the nuances from handmade, so loop size might be slightly different, but that's the beauty of it. Yeah. That's the beauty. Yeah. We call them perfectly imperfect.
Yeah,
carpets.
And it's a great statement. And we actually, thanks to you guys helping us with purchasing rolls, I can actually sell handmade wools for less than what nylons are selling for.
Bam. Yeah, exactly.
So it's providing tremendous value in a high quality piece.
That's right. Yeah.
That's unique.
That's right. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, we still play in the luxury, the way upper luxury market, but we wanted to give enough product bandwidth that offered, again, for the everyday consumer on top of that. And their customers have been nervous of wool because they don't really ever understand it. And I think we're helping with the education piece on that.
The card that was introduced by Stanton, going back to Stanton.
Yeah, love that.
He brought that in. I was like, hey, I think that's great. I'm going to take it. And we kind of plagiarized it a little bit, put our thing on the top. But I was like, and we have them here and we hand them out to people because it's product knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And I think
if you're listening, Stanton, by the way, they did bust that on you, so you should get your lawyers. No, I was kidding.
It was fantastic. So we got a little bit of Stanton still hanging around, and we hand it out. It's good, and it's like that ongoing product knowledge for the consumer.
That's right.
And that's what I think is when people come in to see product, it's all about just kind of telling them, showing them the difference.
They don't know. The consumer doesn't. I mean, yes, obviously they're more educated today because they're spending time online shopping and experiencing that. But because they purchase it so infrequently for their home, 5, 7, 10 years on average, you end up with a consumer that remembered something like laminate, for example. And you think about laminate, that was that disgusting stuff, and it blew up all over the floor when it got wet, and it was these multiple planks, and it was thin, and it was hollow sounding. That's not today's laminate. Today's laminate is awesome. I mean, it's dense, and the realistic visuals you get, the registered embossing, which is where your surface texture matches the grain on it, and so like you see these presses, and it just creates a realistic looking floor that consumer can't tell if that's not laminate or not. They think it's wood, but that wasn't a decade ago. And so a lot changes, and I think for us on our side of the business, your side and my side as well, is just making sure there's enough information, not to overload them, but there's enough information to make them feel comfortable with things they're not used to purchasing. Especially for me on wool, or you may hear poly silk or something and think, well, what is that? If we can give you those little documents to talk about it and make it easy, this is where it can go in your home, and this is what the fiber does. Then I think we simplify the process. Then it just becomes about style and color, and that's where we win. Yeah. Once you get me into style and color conversation, I mean, there's just about next to nothing that can compete when it comes to that. But we have to get you comfortable enough with the fiber, I think, and the consumer thinks that wool's gonna stain or something, and that's not true. Wool is very cleanable. Wool is obviously the most durable fiber. That's why we try to mimic it with everything else we do in synthetic, right? We do. I mean, that's our jobs. And there's some great products that are out there that look like wool now. They're just doing some really good things, but they're synthetic. But you still can't get that lifelong, product that's just going to keep going over and over again. And wool will do that. And we always say your best friend with wool was a white terry cloth towel and some sort of spray cleaner or the powders, and you'll get just about everything up off that floor. From
one of the early PKs
you
did before COVID, where we took and we were like, and you talked about how the wool, got to think about it kind of like fiber, and then the natural lanolin or whatever that's on it, right? And we took water and dumped it on top of that sample, and it just danced across and beat it up on top, right?
There's scales on the hair.
Yeah.
And like on our hair too. I mean, from a microscopic level, if you look at, it looks like there's little ridges and scales on it, and that holds dirt, moisture on the surface, so you can get to it. And I always tell customers, like, look, a spill, unless it's a flood, a spill happens when somebody's around. No, just go get it. I mean, I got 3 kids, so some spills happen when I'm not around. Well, they see it. Now, are they going to tell me? I don't know. It's a different story.
Right.
They don't want to get in trouble. But if, again, a spill happens when somebody's there, so you can get to it and you can take care of this stuff. And even if it's sat there for a while, you can still get stuff out of wool. It's an awesome product.